My name is Eliza Carter, and a few months ago I thought I had the perfect marriage. Turns out I was about as wrong as a person can be without actually ending up in a crisis center. I'm 39 years old, work as a financial analyst for a regional bank in central Jersey. And I used to believe that my husband, Ryan, who loved me, used to believe a lot of things actually, like that 15 years of marriage meant something. That vows weren't just pretty words you say in front of your relatives, that when your husband starts working late every Tuesday and Thursday, he's actually working. The first crack in my perfect little world came on a rainy evening. I was in my home office reviewing quarterly reports that made about as much sense as a broken clock when I heard Ryan laughing in the kitchen. Not his polite company laugh or his tired after-work chuckle. This was different. Intimate, the kind of laugh he used to give me back when we were dating. I crept to the doorway and saw him leaning against the counter phone pressed to his ear, running a hand through his brown hair like a teenager. He was wearing the new sweater I bought him for his birthday, the one he claimed was too nice for every day. "Stop it, you're terrible," he whispered into the phone, his voice dripping with flirtation. "What if Eliza hears you?" My stomach dropped like a stone in deep water. Eliza. He was talking about me to someone else, someone who apparently said things that made him giggle like a schoolboy. I backed away quietly, my mind racing. 15 years of marriage, and I'd never heard him mention my name to another person with that tone, like I was an obstacle, a problem to work around. That night, after Ryan went to his investment group meeting, which suddenly seemed suspicious as hell, I did something I'd never done before. I went through his things. His laptop was password protected naturally, but Ryan wasn't exactly a cybersecurity expert. His password was our anniversary date, same as it had been for years. Within 10 minutes, I was scrolling through his email, feeling like a creep, but unable to stop myself. What I found made me wish I'd stayed ignorant. Dozens of emails to someone named Lena Hayes. Lena worked in Ryan's HR department. Apparently, the early emails were professional enough. Meeting schedules, policy discussions, the usual corporate nonsense. But as I scrolled down, they got progressively more personal. "Thanks for lunch today. I haven't laughed that hard in months. Eliza's working late again. Sometimes I wonder if she even notices I exist. You make me feel alive again." And then from just 2 weeks ago, I can't stop thinking about yesterday. When can we meet again? I sat there in my dark office staring at the screen, feeling like someone had reached into my chest and rearranged my internal organs. 15 years, 2 sons, a mortgage, a life built together brick by brick, and he was throwing it all away for some woman named Lena. The worst part, I wasn't even surprised. Deep down, I'd known something was wrong for months. Ryan had become distant critical, always finding fault with everything I did. The way I loaded the dishwasher, the shows I watched, the fact that I preferred coffee to tea, little cuts day after day, until I'd started to believe maybe I really was as disappointing as he made me feel. But now I knew the truth. It wasn't that I was disappointing. It was that I was in the way. I printed out the most damning emails and hid them in my office safe, then cleared the browser history. Ryan came home around 11 or free, smelling like expensive perfume and someone else's deodorant. He kissed my cheek absently and went straight to bed without a word. I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling planning. The next morning, Ryan was his usual, self-polite, efficient, emotionally distant. He made coffee for himself, but not for me. Packed lunches for our sons, Liam, Asatsi, and Noah. And checked his phone constantly while pretending to read the morning news. "Working late again tonight?" I asked, casually buttering my toast. "Probably," he said, without looking up. "Big project coming up. You know how it is." I knew how it was, all right. His big project was about 5'9", with a stylish haircut and apparently no moral compass. Liam, our 14-year-old, glanced between us with the sharp awareness that teenagers develop when their parents' marriage starts cracking. "Mom, can you drive me to Jake's after school? Dad said he'd be too busy." "Of course, sweetheart." I ruffled his dark hair so much like mine. What about you, Noah, need a ride anywhere? Our 10-year-old shook his head, focused on his cereal. Noah was the sensitive one, the peacekeeper. He'd been quieter than usual lately, probably picking up on the tension between Ryan and me. After the boys left for school, Ryan gathered his things for work. He was wearing a new jacket I didn't recognize, and his hair was more meticulously styled than usual, dressing up for Lena, no doubt. "Have a good day at work," I said, watching him carefully. He paused at the door, his hand on the handle. For a moment I thought he might say something real, something honest. Instead, he just nodded and left. I waited until his car disappeared around the corner, then called in sick to work. I had some research to do. Finding information about Lena Hayes turned out to be embarrassingly easy. The woman had no sense of privacy whatsoever. Her social media profiles were wide open, full of glam selfies and pictures of expensive dinners at restaurants I couldn't afford. She was divorced, no kids, and judging by her posts, she spent most of her free time trying to impress men with her expensive convertible. She was also, I had to admit, exactly the type of woman Ryan would find attractive. Slim, well-dressed, with a kind of confident smile that suggested she'd never doubted herself a day in her life. Everything I wasn't. But here's the thing about people like Lena Hayes. They're usually not as smart as they think they are, and they definitely don't expect the boring wife to fight back. I spent the rest of the day planning my next move. Ryan thought he held all the cards, but he was about to learn that 15 years of marriage had taught me a few things about his weaknesses, too. That evening, Ryan came home 2 hours later than usual, his shirt slightly wrinkled and his cologne scent fading. He claimed he'd grabbed dinner with colleagues after work, but he couldn't meet my eyes when he said it. "How was your day?" he asked, settling onto the couch with his wine glass. "Quiet," I said. "Spent some time organizing files. You'd be amazed what you can find when you really dig through old documents." He looked up sharply. "What kind of documents?" "Oh, financial records, email backups, the usual household paperwork." I kept my voice casual, but I saw his grip tighten on his wine glass. "That sounds incredibly boring." Actually, it was pretty enlightening. I found some interesting patterns in our credit card statements. Lots of charges I didn't recognize. Restaurants I've never been to. Hotels booked on days when you said you were working late. The color drained from Ryan's face. He set down his wine glass with a shaking hand. "Eliza, I can explain." "Can you?" I leaned forward, fixing him with a stare. "Because I'd love to hear how you explain charging a romantic dinner for two to our joint credit card while I was home with the boys thinking you were stuck in a budget meeting." He opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time in months, Ryan was speechless. "Here's what's going to happen," I said quietly. "You're going to tell me everything. Who she is, how long it's been going on, and what exactly you thought was going to happen next, and then we're going to discuss how this ends." Ryan's composure cracked completely. Tears started streaming down his face, but they looked more like panic than remorse. "It's not what you think," he whispered. "Really. Because what I think is that my husband has been having an affair with a coworker named Lena Hayes for at least 3 months, using our money to fund their romantic dates while lying to me and our children every single day. Am I wrong about any of that?" His face went white as fresh snow. He hadn't expected me to know her name. Does it matter?" I stood up, looking down at him. "What matters is what happens next. And Ryan, you're not going to like what happens next." I walked out of the room, leaving him crying on the couch. But as I climbed the stairs to check on our sons, I heard him frantically dialing his phone. "Lena, we have a problem. She knows." Phase 1 was complete. Now the real fun could begin. The next morning, Ryan tried to pretend our conversation had never happened. He made coffee-packed lunches and chatted with the boys about their school plans, as if he hadn't been caught red-handed the night before. But I could see the tension in his shoulders the way he kept glancing at me when he thought I wasn't looking. I played along, let him think maybe he could smooth this over with enough normalcy and denial. People like Ryan always underestimate how much damage they've actually done. After the boys left for school, he finally worked up the courage to approach me. I was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through my tablet and drinking coffee like it was any other morning. "Eliza, about last night." He began perching on the edge of the chair across from me. "What about it?" "I think you misunderstood what you saw. Those charges, they weren't what you think. Sometimes the team goes out after work and I put it on our card because it's easier to expense later." "Ryan." I looked up from my tablet, meeting his eyes directly. "Stop." He fell silent. "I read your emails, all of them. I know about Lena Hayes. I know about your Tuesday and Thursday meetings, and I know you've been lying to me for months. So let's skip the part where you insult my intelligence with more lies and get to the part where you tell me what you want." His face cycled through several expressions: surprise, anger, calculation. Finally, he settled on defiance. "Fine." He straightened in his chair, lifting his chin. "Yes, I've been seeing Lena. And yes, I've been unhappy in this marriage for a long time. We've grown apart, Eliza. We want different things. We're different people than we were 15 years ago." Interesting theory. When did you decide we'd grown apart, before or after you started having dinner dates with your coworker? It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You made a choice. You chose to betray our marriage instead of talking to me about whatever problems you thought we had. You chose to lie to our children. You chose to spend our money on another woman. So now I'm asking you, what do you want? He was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. When he looked up, there was something cold in his eyes that I'd never seen before. "I want a divorce." There it was. The words that had been hanging between us for months finally spoken out loud. "And Lena, that's none of your business." "Actually, it is my business. It's very much my business when my husband's affair partner is going to be around my children." His jaw tightened. "Lena is a good woman. She makes me happy. She sees me as more than just a taxi driver and breadwinner." "Is that what you think you are here? A taxi driver and breadwinner. Isn't it? When was the last time we went somewhere together? Just the two of us. When was the last time you surprised me with anything? When was the last time you made me feel like a man instead of just a husband?" I stared at him, genuinely amazed. "When was the last time you acted like you wanted to spend time with me? When was the last time you initiated any kind of affection? When was the last time you treated me like a wife instead of a roommate you barely tolerate? That's not fair. None of this is fair, Ryan, but here we are." I leaned back in my chair. "So you want a divorce?" "Fine. What are your terms?" He blinked clearly, not expecting me to be so calm about it. I want joint custody of the boys, and I want half of everything. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts. That's what's fair." "And what about Lena? Where does she fit into this picture?" He lifted his chin again, that defiant look returning. "I love her. We're going to be together." "You love her." I repeated the words, slowly tasting them. "After 3 months of sneaking around, you love her." "Yes? More than you love your family. It's not about choosing. It's exactly about choosing. You chose her over us, over me, over Liam, over Noah, over the life we built together." I stood up, walking to the window. "Here's the thing, Ryan. You seem to think you can have it both ways. You can have your exciting new girlfriend and still get half of everything I've worked for. You can blow up our family and still be the good guy." "I'm not trying to be the good guy. I'm trying to be happy." I turned back to him. "At our expense. That's not—" "Let me ask you something. Does Lena know you're married?" He hesitated just long enough to give me my answer. "She knows the situation is complicated." "Does she know you have 2 sons who think their father is working late every Tuesday and Thursday?" "Eliza, please. Does she know you've been using your wife's money to pay for your dates with her?" His face flushed red. "It's not like that. It's exactly like that. You've been stealing from our family to fund your affair, and now you want to be rewarded for it with half of everything." I shook my head. "That's not how this works." "What do you mean?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. It displayed a folder labeled Evidence with dozens of files. I mean, I've documented everything. Every lie, every charge, every email. I've got enough evidence to make your life very complicated in a divorce proceeding. Adultery might not matter much in New Jersey, but financial infidelity does, and lying about it under oath definitely matters. He stared at the phone, his face going pale. "You've been planning this." "I've been protecting myself, something I should have started doing months ago." He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Fine. You want to play hardball? Let's play hardball. I'm not playing anything, Ryan. I'm just not going to let you destroy our family and walk away with a reward. Our family was already destroyed. You just didn't notice." "No, our family was destroyed the moment you decided Lena Hayes was more important than your wedding vows." He grabbed his keys and headed for the door. "I'm going to work. We'll continue this conversation later." "Actually, we won't." He stopped his hand on the doorknob. "What?" "I said we won't continue this conversation later. We're done talking. You can't just, I can and I am. You want a divorce. Fine, you'll hear from my lawyer, Diana Wong." "Eliza, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable. I'm giving you exactly what you asked for." I walked over to the front closet and pulled out 2 suitcases, the ones we'd used for our last family vacation back when we still pretended to be happy. "I packed some of your things. The rest will be boxed up and delivered wherever you want them sent." He stared at the suitcases like they were poisonous snakes. "You can't kick me out of my own house. It's not your house anymore. It's my house where I live with my sons. You made it very clear that you'd rather be somewhere else." "The boys will be told that Daddy decided he needed some time to think about what he really wants, which is true, isn't it?" Tears started streaming down his face again, but this time they looked real. "I never meant for it to happen this way." "Yes, you did. You just thought you could control how it played out." I picked up the suitcases and set them by the door. "You thought you could have your affair and your divorce and your fresh start, and I'd just go along with whatever you wanted because that's what I've always done. You thought I was too weak or too stupid or too dependent on you to fight back. That's not true." "Isn't it? When was the last time I said no to you about anything that mattered? When was the last time I stood up for myself instead of just trying to keep the peace?" He didn't answer. "You got comfortable thinking of me as a pushover. Well, surprise I'm not." I opened the front door and gestured to the suitcases. "Your girlfriend is expecting you, isn't she? I'm sure she'll be happy to help you figure out your next move." He picked up the suitcases with shaking hands. "This isn't over, Eliza." "Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet." He walked out and I closed the door behind him. Then I turned the deadbolt and slid the chain lock into place. Through the window, I watched him load the suitcases into his car. He sat in the driver's seat for a long time, probably calling Lena or trying to figure out what to do next. Finally, he drove away. I went to my office and opened my laptop. I had a lot of work to do before the boys got home from school. Ryan's first mistake was thinking I'd change my mind overnight. His second mistake was underestimating how much our sons had already figured out. I picked up Liam and Noah from school that afternoon, and we stopped for ice cream on the way home. It was something Ryan never had time for anymore, too busy with his work projects. "Mom," Liam said carefully, spooning chocolate chip mint into his mouth, "is Dad okay? He seemed really upset this morning." Noah looked up from his strawberry cone, those big brown eyes full of worry. I'd been dreading this conversation, but I'd also been preparing for it. "Your dad and I are having some problems right now," I said honestly. "Adult problems that have nothing to do with you two. But I want you to know that no matter what happens between your dad and me, we both love you very much." "Are you getting divorced?" Liam asked bluntly. At 14, he was too smart to be fooled by vague reassurances. I don't know yet. Maybe. Would that scare you? He considered this seriously. Jake's. Parents got divorced last year. He said it was actually better after because they stopped fighting all the time. You and Dad don't fight, Noah said quietly. No, we don't fight, but we haven't been very happy together lately either. Is that why Dad's always on his phone? Liam asked. And why he doesn't want to do family movie nights anymore? Sharp kid. Too sharp. Your dad has been distracted lately by work and other things. Other things like what? I looked at my 14-year-old son, so much wiser than he should have to be, and made a decision. Like a friend from work who's become very important to him. Liam's eyes widened slightly. He was old enough to read between the lines. Oh, yeah. Oh. We finished our ice cream in contemplative silence. When we got home, Ryan's car was in the driveway. He was sitting on the front porch steps with his suitcases looking like a lost child. When he saw us, he jumped up and ran over. Boys, I'm so glad you're home. I was worried. Dad, what are your suitcases doing outside? Noah asked. Ryan shot me a venomous look. Eliza and I had a disagreement this morning. She thinks I should stay somewhere else for a while. Why? Liam asked, looking between us. Because your father has decided he'd rather spend time with someone else, I said calmly. Someone from work. Ryan's face went white. Eliza, don't what? Don't tell them the truth? They're not stupid, Ryan. They've noticed you're never here anymore. I've been working. No, you haven't. I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. I called your office this morning, spoke to your assistant. Very interesting conversation. Turns out you haven't worked late a single Tuesday or Thursday in the past 2 months. In fact, you've been leaving early on those days. The boys looked at their father with growing understanding. Dad? Liam's voice was small. Is Mom telling the truth? Ryan's composure finally cracked completely. He sank down onto the porch steps and started sobbing. It's complicated, baby. You wouldn't understand. I understand that you lied to us. Liam said, his voice harder than I'd ever heard it. I understand that you've been sneaking around and lying about where you were. Liam, please. Is it true? Noah asked, tears starting to roll down his cheeks. Do you have a girlfriend? Ryan looked at our 10-year-old son, his face streaked with tears and confusion, and something inside him seemed to break. Yes, he whispered. Yes, it's true. Noah's face crumpled. He ran to me and buried his face against my side. Liam just stared at his father with disappointment that looked far too mature for a 14-year-old. How could you do that to Mom? You don't understand. I understand that you cheated. I understand that you lied. And I understand that you hurt our family. Liam's voice was shaking with anger. Jake's dad cheated too. That's why his parents got divorced. And you know what Jake told me. He said he was glad his mom found out because his dad was making everyone miserable with all the lying. Ryan looked like he'd been slapped. Liam, that's not fair. What's not fair is what you did to us. I put my arm around Liam's shoulders. Boys, why don't you go inside and start your homework? Your dad and I need to finish our conversation. They went inside, Noah still crying, and Liam looking like he wanted to punch something. Ryan and I stared at each other across the driveway. You had no right to tell them like that, he said finally. I had every right. They're my sons too, and they deserve to know why their father suddenly decided he didn't want to live here anymore. I never said I didn't want to live here. You didn't have to say it. You showed it. Every day for months you showed them that something else was more important than being their father. That's not true. Isn't it? When was the last time you helped with homework? When was the last time you asked about their day and actually listened to the answer? When was the last time you tucked Noah in at night or had a real conversation with Liam about anything other than chores? He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. You checked out of this family long before you started your affair, Ryan. Lena was just the excuse you used to make it official. I never meant to hurt them. But you did hurt them. And you're going to keep hurting them every day you choose her over them. It's not about choosing. It's always about choosing. Every day, every decision, every priority, and you've made your choice very clear. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and smiled grimly. "Who is it?" Ryan asked. "My lawyer, Diana Wong." "The divorce papers are ready." His face went pale again. "Already." "I told you I'd been preparing. I filed this morning right after you left. You can't just—" "I can, and I did. You wanted a divorce, Ryan. Congratulations. You're getting one." I pulled a thick envelope from my jacket pocket and handed it to him. "What is this?" "Your copy of the petition. You have 30 days to respond." He opened the envelope with shaking hands and scanned the first page. "You're asking for sole custody." "I'm asking for primary custody with supervised visitation for you until we can establish that you're capable of putting our son's needs ahead of your own." "That's ridiculous." "Is it? You've been lying to them for months. You've been prioritizing your affair over their emotional well-being. You've been using money that should go toward their needs to fund romantic dinners with your girlfriend. How exactly does that demonstrate good parenting?" "I've never neglected them." "You've been emotionally absent for months. They've noticed Ryan. Kids always notice." He flipped through more pages, his face getting paler with each one. "You're asking for alimony. I'm asking for child support. There's a difference. And the house stays with me and the boys. They've been through enough upheaval. They shouldn't have to lose their home too." "This is insane. You can't just take everything." "I'm not taking anything. I'm keeping what's mine and what's best for our children. You're the one who decided to throw it all away." He stood up abruptly, clutching the papers. "I need to call my lawyer, San Misibis, James Peterson." "You do that. And Ryan, when you talk to Lena about all this, you might want to mention that her husband might be interested to know about her extracurricular activities." He froze. "What husband?" I pulled out my phone and showed him a social media profile. "Lena Hayes, married to Ward Ben Hayes' wife for 8 years, 2 young children." "You didn't know?" I asked innocently. "How interesting. I wonder what else she forgot to mention." Ryan stared at the screen like it was showing him a car accident. "That's impossible. She's divorced." "She lied. Just like you lied to me." "Funny how that works." He scrolled through the photos with shaking hands. Lena with her husband at a restaurant. Lena with her kids at a baseball game. Lena at a family barbecue just last weekend. But she said what you wanted to hear, just like you told me what you thought I wanted to hear for months. He sank back down onto the porch steps, staring at the phone. "I don't understand." "You don't understand because you didn't want to understand. You wanted to believe in some fantasy where you could have everything you wanted without consequences." I took my phone back and put it in my pocket. "Here's a consequence for you. Lena Hayes is a liar and a cheater, just like you. The only difference is she's better at it." Ryan looked up at me with tears streaming down his face. "What am I supposed to do now?" "That's not my problem anymore, but if I were you, I'd start by figuring out where you're going to sleep tonight, because it's not going to be here." I picked up his suitcases and set them next to his car. "The boys will need some time to process all this. I think it's best if you give them some space for a few days. You can't keep me from seeing my own children." "I'm not keeping you from anything. I'm suggesting that forcing yourself on them right now when they're hurt and angry might not be the best parenting choice. But then again, good parenting choices haven't exactly been your strong suit lately." He stood up slowly like an old man. "I never wanted it to happen this way." "No, you wanted it to happen the easy way. You wanted to have your affair and your divorce and your fresh start, and you wanted everyone to just accept it and move on. You wanted to blow up our family and still be the victim." I opened his car door for him. "Life doesn't work that way, Ryan. Actions have consequences, and you're about to learn what those consequences look like." He got in the car without another word. I watched him drive away, then went inside to check on my sons. They were in the living room pretending to do homework, but obviously listening to every word of our conversation. "Is Dad coming back?" Noah asked quietly. "Not tonight. Maybe not for a while." "Good," Liam said fiercely. "I don't want to see him right now." I sat down between them on the couch and pulled them both close. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be hurt. It's okay to be confused. What happened isn't your fault, and it doesn't mean either of us loves you any less. "Will he choose her over us?" Noah asked. I thought about that question carefully. "I don't know, sweetheart, I hope not, but if he does, that's his choice, and it says something about him, not about you." "What if he tries to make us live with her?" Liam asked. "That's not going to happen, I promise." We ordered pizza for dinner and watched a movie together, just the three of us. For the first time in months, the house felt peaceful. But I knew the peace wouldn't last. Ryan wasn't going to go quietly, and Lena Hayes wasn't going to appreciate having her perfect life exposed. The real war was just beginning. Ryan's lawyer called me the next morning. James Peterson. Family law specialist with a reputation for being thorough and expensive. I wasn't surprised Ryan had hired him. It was exactly the kind of power move he'd think would intimidate me. "Ms. Carter, I represent Ryan Carter in your divorce proceedings. I'd like to discuss a settlement before this gets adversarial." I thought it was already adversarial when your client started having an affair. My client's personal relationships aren't relevant to the division of marital assets. Actually, they're very relevant when those relationships involved spending marital assets on another person without spousal consent. There was a pause. Ryan hadn't told his lawyer about the financial infidelity. Interesting. Perhaps we could meet in person to discuss the details. I'm sure we'll have plenty of opportunities to discuss details. My lawyer, Diana Wong, will be in touch. I hung up and immediately called my own attorney. We'd gone to college together, and she specialized in exactly the kind of messy divorce Ryan was about to experience. "Ellie, I got your documents. This is pretty cut and dried. He doesn't have much leverage." "He thinks he does. He hired James Peterson." "Peterson's good, but he can't work miracles. Your husband made some very poor choices, and you documented them well. The financial stuff alone is going to hurt his case significantly." "What about custody?" "With the evidence you've provided, I'd say you have an excellent chance of getting primary custody. The boys are old enough that their preferences will carry weight, and based on your notes, they're not happy with their father right now." "They're not. Liam barely spoke to him yesterday, and Noah cried himself to sleep." "That's unfortunate, but it supports our case. The court's primary concern is the children's best interests." "Good. What's our next move?" "I file our response to any settlement offers, and we wait for him to make the first mistake. He's already made plenty of mistakes. I mean, legal mistakes. Right now, he's probably panicking and making emotional decisions. Emotional decisions lead to tactical errors." She was right. Ryan called that afternoon crying and begging me to reconsider. "Eliza, please, we can work this out. We don't need lawyers and courts and all this ugliness." "Well, we needed to work it out before you started lying and cheating. It's too late now." "It's not too late. I made a mistake, but we can fix this." "What about Lena?" There was a long pause. "I'm not seeing her anymore." "Really? Since when?" "Since I found out she lied to me too." I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "So now that your affair partner turned out to be a fraud, you want your backup plan back?" "It's not like that. It's exactly like that. You wanted to trade up, and when that didn't work out, you decided maybe your old life wasn't so bad after all." "I love you, Eliza. I know I screwed up, but I love you." "No, you don't. You love the security I represent. You love having someone to fall back on when your exciting new life doesn't work out. But you don't love me. That's not true." "When was the last time you told me you loved me and meant it? When was the last time you looked at me like you were happy to see me?" When was the last time you treated me like someone you wanted to be with instead of someone you were stuck with? He couldn't answer. You checked out of this marriage months ago, Ryan. The only reason you want back in now is because you're scared of being alone. I'm scared of losing my family. You already lost your family. You threw it away for a woman who was using you exactly the same way you were using me. Please, Eliza, give me another chance. I gave you 15 years of chances. I'm done. I hung up and blocked his number. But Ryan wasn't done trying. He showed up at the boys' school the next day trying to pick them up early. The office called me immediately. I'd already put them on alert about the custody situation. Miss Carter, Mr. Carter is here asking to take the boys home. He seems upset. Don't release them to him. I'll be right there. I arrived to find Ryan in the principal's office arguing with Mrs. Patterson about his parental rights. They're my children. You can't keep me from taking them. Actually, we can, Mrs. Patterson said calmly. Ms. Carter provided us with documentation showing that custody is currently in dispute. Until that's resolved, we are following her instructions as the custodial parent. Ryan turned when he saw me, his face streaked with tears and red eyes. Eliza, please, I just want to talk to them. You can talk to them during your supervised visitation once the court sets that up. Supervised visitation? They're my sons. They're our sons. And right now, they don't want to see you. Forcing the issue isn't going to help your case. Mrs. Patterson cleared her throat diplomatically. Perhaps this conversation would be better continued elsewhere. Ryan followed me out to the parking lot, still pleading. This is insane. You're poisoning them against me. I'm not poisoning them against anyone. They're old enough to understand what you did, and they're reacting accordingly. They'll forgive me. Kids are resilient. Maybe they will, but forgiveness isn't the same as trust, and trust isn't the same as wanting you in their lives. You can't keep them from me forever. I'm not keeping them from you. I'm protecting them from more emotional damage while you figure out whether being their father is actually important to you. Of course it's important to me. Is it? Because when you had to choose between your family and Lena Hayes, you chose Lena. When you had to choose between your children's emotional well-being and your own selfish desires, you chose yourself. Why should they believe that's changed? He stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. I made a mistake. You made a series of deliberate choices over a period of months. Those weren't mistakes, Ryan. They were decisions. People can change. Can they? Because 2 days ago, you were telling me how much you loved her and how unhappy you were in our marriage. Now suddenly, you love me again and want to save our family. Which version is the real you? He opened his mouth to answer, then closed it. The real you is the man who spent 3 months lying to his children so he could sneak around with a married woman. The real you is the man who was willing to destroy his family for someone he barely knew. That's who you are, Ryan. Own it. I walked away, leaving him standing in the school parking lot. That evening, I got a call from an unknown number. Is this Eliza Carter? Who's asking? This is called Ben Hayes. I think we need to talk. Lena's husband. This was going to be interesting. I think you're right. When and where? We met at a coffee shop downtown the next evening. Ben Hayes was a tall man with tired eyes and the look of someone who'd been holding things together through sheer willpower. I found some interesting text messages on my wife's phone, he said without preamble. Messages from your husband. I'm sorry you had to find out that way. Are you? Because you're the one who sent me the information about their affair. I'd sent him an anonymous email with screenshots of Ryan's messages to Lena. It seemed like the right thing to do. You deserve to know. Yes, I did. Just like you deserve to know. He pulled out his phone and showed me the screen. These are from yesterday. The messages were from Ryan begging Lena to meet him, telling her he'd left me and they could be together now. Her responses were brutal. "It was fun while it lasted, but I'm not leaving my family for you. Find someone else to solve your problems." "He doesn't know when to quit," I said. "Neither does she. This isn't her first affair, but it's going to be her last. You're divorcing her." "I'm taking her for everything she's worth, and I'm making sure everyone knows exactly what kind of woman she is." He pulled out a thick folder and slid it across the table. Copies of everything I found. Phone records, credit card statements, hotel receipts, emails. I thought you might find them useful. I flipped through the documents. It was a treasure trove of evidence. "Why are you helping me?" "Because your husband isn't the only victim here. My children are victims. Your children are victims. And I'm tired of selfish people thinking they can destroy families without consequences. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to make sure everyone at their office knows exactly what they've been doing. I'm going to make sure everyone in our social circle knows. I'm going to make sure their reputations are as destroyed as they tried to make our families." I liked Ben Hayes. "If you need any help with that?" "Actually, I do. There's a company party next weekend. Big annual thing. All the employees and their families. I think it would be very educational for everyone to learn the truth about Ryan and Lena." "What did you have in mind?" He smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "Let me tell you what I'm thinking." By the time we finished our coffee, we had a plan. Ryan and Lena thought they could sneak around and lie and hurt people without consequences. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Atlantic Trust Group, P&D. Annual family picnic was held every year at Highswara Bayfront Commons, complete with catered barbecue games for the kids and enough corporate networking to choke a horse. Ryan had dragged me to it for the past 5 years, always insisting we needed to maintain appearances and support his career. This year, I was going to support his career in a very different way. Ben Hayes, had done his homework. He'd identified key people who needed to know the truth about Ryan and Lena's affair. HR executives, department heads, and the husbands of other employees who'd been wondering why Ryan had suddenly become so friendly with their wives. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. No dramatic confrontations, no shouting matches, just information delivered to the right people at the right time, and let human nature take its course. I arrived at the picnic with Liam and Noah, who were still processing everything that had happened, but were excited about the games and food. Ryan was already there, standing near the registration table, with a forced smile, clearly hoping to project normalcy. He saw us and hurried over. "Eliza, boys, I'm so glad you came." Liam stepped slightly behind me. Noah just stared at his father with those big, sad eyes. "We came for the boys," I said simply. "They like the games." "Of course. That's great." Ryan looked around nervously. "Maybe we could sit together as a family." "We are sitting as a family," Liam said coldly. "Just not with you." Ryan's face crumpled slightly, but he recovered quickly. "Liam, son, I know you're upset, but I'm not upset. I'm disappointed. There's a difference." My 14-year-old son walked away, heading toward the game area. Noah followed without a word. "They'll come around," Ryan said, but he didn't sound convinced. "Maybe, or maybe they won't. That's up to you." I left him standing there and went to find Ben Hayes. He was near the food tables talking quietly with a manager from HR and the husband of Ryan's department head. The conversation looked intense. I collected my sons and found seats at a picnic table with a good view of the proceedings. Within an hour, I could see the effects of Ben's information campaign spreading through the crowd like ripples on water. Groups of men would cluster together, talking in low voices, then glance towards Ryan. Women who usually greeted him warmly were suddenly finding reasons to be elsewhere. The friendly atmosphere around him was evaporating like morning dew. Lena arrived with her own family around noon, apparently oblivious to what was happening. She was all smiles and handshakes, playing the role of devoted wife and mother. That lasted about 10 minutes. I watched from across the park as Ben Arpias approached his wife with their 2 children in tow. The conversation was brief and quiet, but I could see Lena's face change from confusion to panic as he spoke. Then he walked away, leaving her standing alone with their kids, who were looking up at her with bewildered expressions. "Mom, what's happening?" Liam asked, following my gaze. "Justice," I said simply. Within another hour, both Ryan and Lena had been pulled aside by different HR executives for informal conversations. I couldn't hear what was being said, but their body language told the story clearly enough. Ryan kept gesturing frantically, trying to explain or justify something. Lena just stood there, looking like she wanted to disappear. The afternoon continued its downward spiral from there. Ryan's usual circle of work friends suddenly had other places to be. Lena's buddies from the gym stopped including her in their conversations. Even the catered food seemed to taste like ash, judging by the expressions on their faces. Around 3 hours, Ryan finally worked up the courage to approach our table again. "Eliza, can we talk privately?" "I don't think that's a good idea." "Please, just for 5 minutes." I looked at my sons. Liam shrugged. Noah nodded slightly. 5 minutes. I said, standing up. We walked to a quiet area near the lake, away from the crowd. "This is your doing," Ryan said without preamble. "You're destroying my career." "I'm not destroying anything. I'm just making sure people know the truth about what you've been doing." "You told the Ben Hayes about us." Ben Hayes deserved to know that his wife was cheating on him, just like I deserved to know that my husband was cheating on me. That's different. How is it different? Because we were already having problems, Ben and Lena were happy. I stared at him in amazement. "Do you hear yourself? You're actually arguing that it was okay to wreck their happy marriage because ours wasn't perfect. That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. You've convinced yourself that your affair was justified because you were unhappy. But somehow their marriage was supposed to be sacred. I never meant for it to go this far. You never meant to get caught. There's a difference." He looked around at the picnic where people were still talking in small groups and shooting glances in our direction. Everyone's staring at me. Yes, they are. Because they just found out that someone they trusted has been lying to everyone for months. I can't go back to work after this. Probably not. Actions have consequences, Ryan. You made choices and now you get to live with the results. What about the boys? What about their college funds? What about our future? You should have thought about that before you decided Lena Hayes was more important than your family. His face crumpled and he started crying again, but this time it didn't feel like genuine remorse. It felt more like self-pity, an attempt to win back sympathy that had long since evaporated. He wiped at his eyes, but the tears just wouldn't stop. "I don't know what to do," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "That's not my problem anymore. Please, Eliza, help me figure this out." I looked at the man I'd been married to for 15 years, the man who had shared my bed, raised our children, and promised to love me through the good and the bad. But as I stared at him, I felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, just emptiness. "You're on your own, Ryan, just like you wanted to be." With that, I turned and walked back to my sons, leaving him sobbing by the lake. The weight of the moment didn't hit me. I was done. I had given everything to a marriage that wasn't real anymore, and the truth was I was relieved to be walking away from it. We stayed for another hour, long enough for the boys to finish the games they wanted to play and to eat some surprisingly good barbecue. As we were getting ready to leave, Ben Hayes walked up to our table. "Miss Carter." He said, his voice a little unsure but grateful. "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" I asked, surprised. "For helping me see the truth and for helping me do something about it." I raised an eyebrow. "What's going to happen now?" "Lena's been suspended pending investigation," he explained. "Apparently using company resources for personal affairs violates several policies, and I filed for divorce this morning." "I'm sorry it came to this." "I'm not," he replied, shaking his head. "I'm sorry it took so long. So, he glanced at Liam and Noah, who had been listening intently to our conversation. Boys, I want you to know that what your parents are going through isn't your fault. Sometimes adults make bad choices, and other adults have to clean up the mess. We know, Liam said solemnly, his eyes serious beyond his years. Mom explained it to us. Ben gave me a quick glance, and I nodded at him. It was hard to explain, but I had done my best to protect them from the worst of it. Your mom seems like a good woman, Ben said, smiling gently. You're lucky to have her. We know that, too, Noah said quietly, looking up at me with a sense of quiet pride in his eyes. The conversation settled into a comfortable silence after that. The day had unfolded in ways I hadn't expected, but the finality of it all was clear now. Ben was taking control of his life. Ryan was dealing with the consequences of his actions, and I was finally free of the weight I'd been carrying for far too long. As we made our way to the car, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. A peace I hadn't known in years. I wasn't the one who had fallen short. I wasn't the one who had betrayed. And in the end, that was enough. Sometimes the only way forward is through the truth. And finally, I was living in it. Ben smiled and walked away, heading toward his own children, who were waiting by the parking lot. As we packed up our things, I saw Ryan one more time. He was sitting alone at a picnic table, staring at his phone. Most of the other families had already left, and the few remaining groups were giving him a wide berth. He looked small and lost, and completely alone. Do you feel sorry for him? Liam asked, following my gaze. I considered the question carefully. I feel sorry for the person he used to be, or the person I thought he was, but the person he actually is, the person who was willing to lie to you and your brother for months. No, I don't feel sorry for him. Good, Liam said fiercely. He doesn't deserve it. We drove home in comfortable silence, the radio playing quietly and the afternoon sun slanting through the windows. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe properly. My phone buzzed with a text message as we pulled into our driveway. It was from Diana Wong, my lawyer. Ryan's attorney called. They want to discuss settlement terms. I think we've got them right where we want them. I smiled and put the phone away. The war wasn't over yet, but I was winning, and Ryan was finally learning what it felt like to face the consequences of his choices. The settlement conference was scheduled for the following Wednesday at Diana Wong's office. Ryan arrived with James Peterson and a briefcase full of documents, clearly hoping to mount some kind of legal counterattack. He looked terrible. His usually perfect hair was messy. His clothing was wrinkled, and he was wearing a sloppy sweater that suggested he'd been sleeping on someone's couch. Eliza, he said quietly as we sat down at the conference table. Thank you for agreeing to mediation. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for the boys. James Peterson cleared his throat and opened his briefcase. My client is prepared to make a reasonable settlement offer that takes into account the best interests of the children. Diana Wong leaned back in her chair. We're listening. Mr. Carter is willing to accept a 60-40 split of marital assets, with him taking the smaller portion. He's also willing to accept joint custody with alternating weeks. Interesting, Diana said. What does he want in return? He wants Ms. Carter to agree not to pursue the financial infidelity claims, and he wants a non-disclosure agreement preventing either party from discussing the details of the marriage breakdown. I almost laughed out loud. Let me get this straight. He wants me to pretend he didn't steal money from our family to fund his affair, and he wants to make sure I can't tell anyone else the truth about what he did. My client made some poor personal choices, but your client committed adultery and financial fraud. Those aren't poor personal choices. They're betrayals of trust and violations of his fiduciary duty as a spouse. Ryan spoke up for the first time. Eliza, please. I know I hurt you, but dragging this through the courts isn't going to help anyone. It's going to help our sons understand that actions have consequences. They're children. They don't need to know all the ugly details. They already know the ugly details, Ryan. They lived through them. They watched you lie to them for months. They watched you choose another woman over their family. I never chose anyone over them. You chose Lena over them every time you lied about where you were going. You chose her over them every time you spent money that should have gone to their needs on romantic dinners with her. You chose her over them every time you came home late and distracted and emotionally unavailable. Ryan's face crumpled. I was confused. I was unhappy. I made mistakes. You made choices, and now you get to live with them. Diana Wong pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Here's our counteroffer. Ms. Carter keeps the house and all marital assets. Mr. Carter gets supervised visitation every other weekend until he completes counseling and demonstrates consistent child-focused behavior for at least 6 months. James Peterson's eyebrows shot up. That's completely unreasonable. What's unreasonable is asking my client to reward his wife's adultery and financial betrayal with half of everything he's worked for. The court won't support such a one-sided agreement. The court will support whatever's in the children's best interests, and given the evidence we have of Mr. Carter's behavior, I think we're in a very strong position. Diana opened another folder and spread out photographs, bank statements, and printed emails. Hotel receipts charged to the family credit card restaurant bills for 2 when Ms. Carter was home with the children, text messages discussing lies he planned to tell his family, phone records showing hundreds of calls and messages to Ms. Hayes during times when he claimed to be working. Ryan stared at the evidence spread across the table like it was a crime scene, which in a way it was. We also have statements from the children expressing their preference to live primarily with their mother and documentation of Mr. Carter's attempt to remove them from school without authorization. That was a misunderstanding, Ryan started. It was a violation of the custody arrangement we'd already established. I said, just like everything else you've done since this started. James Peterson gathered up the documents and whispered something to Ryan, who shook his head vehemently. My client needs time to consider this offer. Of course he does. Take all the time you need, but understand that this offer expires in 72 hours. After that, we go to court and let a judge decide. And if we go to court, Ryan asked quietly, if we go to court, all of this becomes public record. Every email, every lie, every dollar you spent on your affair. Is that really what you want? Ryan looked like he was going to be sick. I need to think about this. Think fast, I said, standing up, because I'm done negotiating. I walked out of the conference room, leaving Ryan and his lawyer to contemplate their very limited options. Diana caught up with me in the hallway. That went well. I think he'll take the deal. And if he doesn't, then we destroy him in court. With the evidence we have, he'll be lucky to get supervised visitation once a month. My phone rang as I was driving home. It was Ryan. Eliza, please don't do this. Do what? Hold you accountable for your choices. Destroy my relationship with my sons. I'm not destroying anything. You already did that. They'll forgive me eventually, but not if you turn them against me completely. I haven't turned them against you, Ryan. You did that yourself. Please, I'm begging you. I'll sign whatever you want, but please don't take my children away from me. I'm not taking them away from you. I'm protecting them from further damage while you figure out whether being their father is actually important to you. Of course it's important to me. Then prove it. Take the deal. Get counseling. Learn how to put their needs ahead of your own. Show them that they matter more than whatever woman you're interested in this week. That's not fair. Fair, you want to talk about fair. Is it fair that Liam has trust issues because his father lied to him for months? Is it fair that Noah cries himself to sleep, wondering if he did something wrong? Is it fair that they have to live with the knowledge that their father chose a stranger over their family? Ryan was crying again, but I was past caring. You want your sons back, earn them back. Prove that you're capable of being the father they deserve. How am I supposed to do that with supervised visitation? The same way you're supposed to do everything else from now on. One choice at a time, one day at a time, one opportunity to do better than you did yesterday. I hung up and blocked his number again. That evening, I sat down with Liam and Noah to explain what was happening with the divorce. "Is Dad gonna live with us again?" Noah asked. "No, sweetheart, Dad and I are getting divorced. That means we're not going to be married anymore, and he's going to live somewhere else." "But we'll still see him," Liam asked. "Yes, you'll still see him, but it will be different than before." "Different? How?" I chose my words carefully. "For now, when you see Dad, there will be another adult there, too. Someone whose job is to make sure everyone feels safe and comfortable." "Why?" Noah asked. "Because Dad needs to learn some new ways of being a parent, ways that put you and your brother first always." Liam, who is too smart for his own good, understood immediately. "He has to prove he won't hurt us again." "Something like that, yes." "What if he can't prove it? Then we'll keep taking care of each other just like we have been." Noah crawled into my lap and put his arms around my neck. "I don't want Dad to hurt us anymore." "He won't, baby. I promise." "How do you know?" "Because I won't let him." The next morning, Diana Wong called with the news I'd been expecting. "He took the deal, signed everything. It's over." Just like that. Just like that. He gets supervised visitation every other weekend. You get primary custody and the house. And he agrees not to contest any of the financial arrangements. What about the non-disclosure agreement? He dropped that demand. I think he realized it was better to accept the settlement quietly than risk having everything aired in open court. So it's really over. It's really over. Congratulations, Ellie. You won. I hung up the phone and looked around my kitchen. My kitchen in my house where my sons would grow up safe and loved and free from the chaos their father had created. I didn't feel like celebrating. I felt tired and sad and relieved all at the same time. But mostly I felt free. That afternoon, I picked up the boys from school and took them out for ice cream again. It was becoming our tradition, a small ritual of normalcy in the midst of all the upheaval. "Mom," Liam said, spooning mint chocolate chip into his mouth, "are you happy?" I considered the question seriously. "I'm not happy about what happened to our family, but I'm happy that we're going to be okay." "Are we going to be okay?" "We're going to be better than okay. We're going to be honest with each other, and we're going to take care of each other, and we're going to build something good out of what's left." "What about Dad?" "What about him? Is he going to be okay?" I looked at my sons, these amazing, resilient, wise little people who'd been through so much and were still capable of worrying about someone who'd hurt them. "I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so. But that's up to him now." "I hope so, too," Noah said quietly, even though he hurt us. "That's very grown up of you, baby." "Mom," Liam said. "Yeah. Thank you for protecting us. Thank you for being worth protecting." We finished our ice cream and drove home through the golden afternoon, the radio playing softly and the future stretching out ahead of us like an open road. Ryan had drawn first, but I had finished it, and we were going to be just fine.